I wanted to do really quick as I can, summary of some of the changes we are planning as we go into 2021, because I'm going to go really fast. If there are things that you have further questions about and it's not written down on the website, then really feel free to get in touch. So we have been on a journey for a number of years, 7, 8, 9 years, where we have been thinking about what church is for and why we do it. And this summer especially, we started to think, because of all the disruptions of the coronavirus pandemic, we started to think, we've had this way of doing church for so long, and then we're hoping to get this outcome. Maybe we should think about our outcome and then think about how do we do church to best suit the outcome. So our outcome is to fulfill our purpose, to help people connect to God, to grow towards the person they were created to be equipped to use their skills, talents, personalities for God's kingdom, and to make an impact into the world around them. And that process of becoming those sorts of people really is discipleship. And so if we want to create disciples, we were thinking, is the way we're doing church the best way to create disciples? And so what we want to do is we want to take a step towards organising ourselves better around the outcome we want to produce, which is disciples. So in some ways it's a subtle change, in some ways it's a dramatic change, but one thing we should note is our understanding of how church is done, which we often picture as lots of people in one room receiving from a few people that do stuff at the front. That is a church model that's been around for hundreds of years. We're really used to it. It has lots of benefits. It is good in lots of ways. But it's not the only way to do church. And what we're talking about doing, it would be far more common through church history and actually around the world, especially in areas where the church is growing. This is much more a common model of the way of doing church. So what we want to move into is instead of thinking of church in that big hall every week, getting together with lots of people, we want to move church into smaller groups that meet in people's homes over food. Now, an issue here is what I'm going to talk about first is where we want to go, and then I'll row back and we'll talk about what we can do now because of coronavirus regulations. So for the moment, let's just imagine that isn't an issue. This is where we want to go. So we want to make our weekly expression of church in smaller groups that we're calling hubs. They will meet over food and hang out. It's going to be families involved, and they are going to have food together. We want to maintain our sense of being a whole church, of being Exeter Vineyard Church. So as we have been doing each week, we will continue to release a video service with a talk. And so hubs will watch that talk. There's going to be the kind of material, and then they have a chance to discuss it, to talk about how it fits into their own stories, their lives, to talk about what they think God might be challenging them to do with that. And then the great thing is, because we're in a group where we're building relationships, the following week, people get back together and they say, hey, you felt God was telling you to do this, what did you do about it? And so we have a level of accountability and encouragement to actually do the things we feel God's saying. Now, apart from just the strength of having a community, of having those relationships, which is so important to what it is to be human, instead of maybe just being part of a large crowd, apart from that, one thing that we think this is really helpful in the process of being a disciple is it moves from a passive space to an active space. Now, it's not always true, but it is possible on a Sunday morning in a traditional church to sit, hear the information, think, oh, that's really good, I like that, and then go out and just get on with your life. By talking about what the Bible's saying, whatever the theme is for that week, in a group of people, discussing it, giving your opinions, and then being asked, well, what do you think God wants you to do about this, moves us into an active environment, which is far more what discipleship is, which is the deliberate choosing to journey with Jesus towards the person he created us to be. And I think that a good way to understand it's a difference between having a fitness app on your phone and going to a fitness class. If you've got the app on your phone, you may or may not use it, and then it doesn't matter, no one really knows. Whereas if you go to a fitness class, it's far harder to sit at the back, eat crisps and watch TikTok on your phone. It kind of stands out. So because you're at the class, you get involved in the class and you start to get the benefits of the fitness. And so in the same way, we think that this process of discipleship will be far better for us to find ourselves growing in God because we are in these environments. And we just think if you look in the Bible, so much of what Jesus did was over food and in everyday life. And so actually our aim isn't to just have these weekly meetings in a different environment. It is to build communities where we are doing life together. So it's not just when we meet in weekly, but in between as well. We're connected, we're supporting, we're getting to know one another, and we are growing through that as well. So that's kind of what would become our weekly connection with church. But we still want to remember that we are part of this larger church family. That's really important. So we would like to, when COVID allows, we want to meet as a whole church to do those things that are best suited to large crowds of people. So it's things like corporate worship, to get the band and just to have a real concentrate on worship, to practice spiritual gifts, to party and celebrate and have fun, to tell stories, to hear vision. All those sorts of things work much better in a large group. So we would like to, regularly, maybe twice a month, do these whole church meetings, but the weekly connection, our primary connection as being part of the church, is in these kind of mini churches that we call hubs. So that's where we want to go. We want it to be involved for the whole family. So we think it's actually a really good environment for children to be in, children and teenagers to be in, with grown-ups who aren't in their immediate family, but that is still centered around God. We think that's a really good place for them to be, but we realize there might be times during the hub when it gets into more of a discussion, it might be better for the kids to be told, you can go off and play, or here's your phone, you can have your phone back, those sorts of things. It's the kind of things that would happen when we go to a family gathering or we meet family friends, that you would, you'd have the meal together and they'd converse and then they'd get to go off and do stuff. So that's fine. But alongside what we're doing, all this hub stuff, we want to build communities, intentional communities of young people. So age-banded young people that will meet, we want twice a month, to do fun activities that are also helping them develop their relationship with God. So, and these will change depending on ages. It might be more like a hangout, it might be like a youth club, or it might be like a young person's home group. But these things will run through the week as well. Our young people are a real priority. We really want to invest in them so they really get the best of both worlds. They get these communities where they start to build friends with their peers who are also in the same situation as them, experiencing the same pressures, but pushing into God, and they get to be part of these wider communities with other families, other adults as well. So that's where we want to go. The reality is we can't do that because of the coronavirus restrictions, but we're still pressing ahead. One reason is I am certain that we are going to be allowed to be in small groups in gardens and homes before we're allowed to meet all together in a hall. So we think we will get to push into this sooner with hubs than we would if we wanted to go back to a kind of traditional church model that we've had for years. So that's one thing, but we are still going to push ahead anyway, because what we want to do is still create hubs that people connect, and it's just going to have to be virtual for now. It's going to have to be Zoom and WhatsApp groups, but it's still an opportunity to be active and intentional about discipleship in our own lives. So it's still an opportunity to have online discussion about a theme, to be offering our own opinions, to be talking about what it means to us, to be talking about what we want to do. These are all really important things. So we're going to have to start virtually, and then maybe it will progress that we can meet outside or in smaller groups, go for a walk, things like that. We still want to build these communities as hubs now. Finally, just want to talk about if you don't want to get involved, if this isn't something that's right for you right now, there's no problem. We still would want you to feel like you're part of Exeter Vineyard Church. That's fine. It might be that just the season isn't right. It might be just you want to wait and see what it looks like for other people. That's fine. So in that case, we are still going to continue to do our weekly online services. They're going to be released. The longer version and the shorter version are going to come out, so you can still engage with what we're doing. That is the material hubs are going to be using as their resource each week, but you can still connect with it on your own. And in fact, while coronavirus regulations are here, it's not going to feel like there's any difference. So that will still be happening. And then once we can do whole church events, you're really welcome to come and join in with that as well. But we are not planning to go back to a weekly Sunday service with everyone together. Now, maybe when we do whole church events, it looks really like a Sunday service, or maybe it doesn't. We will make that decision when we get there, and we feel really free to just try things. We're not pretending we have all the answers. We know exactly what's going to happen. We are just trying to follow God's lead and see where it leads us. So those are our plans. If you have any questions, get in touch. But otherwise, God bless, and let's pray that 2021, despite what happens everywhere else, will be a year where we really start to grow in our relationship with God and find ourselves being discipled.